Today, we're going to have a chat about how eavesdropping can increase your sales. One of the things that I started doing recently, or in the recent years, is using call recording as a way to monitor and see what's going on in a training perspective with sales calls, because I really think it's I don't know why I wasn't comfortable with it in the beginning. Maybe it was because the technology was hard to get a hold of, or I just felt uncomfortable with it, but it was something that I never did early days in running a business and a sales team. But just recently I've really been listening to the calls on a regular basis and using them as a training tool. And I thought it would be good, if you do have a sales team or you have a marketing team that's on the phone doing telesales, that it's really important that you start to think about how you can do call monitoring, but use it as a training tool and also a tool to reward those in your business that are doing some great things. So I've got a few tips for you that I think help make the process a whole bunch better. I've got dozens of tips, but I'm going to share probably about 7 tips with you today on how you can use call recording or call monitoring as a way to increase your sales by using it as a training tool. Now, my very first tip is to make sure you get the agents involved, or your salespeople, or whoever it might be. Get them involved in the process so they feel like they're not just got Big Brother watching. So listen to the recordings together. Let them know that you're recording. I mean, they have to let the prospect know anyway that the calls will be recorded. But the more you get them involved in the process and the implementation of the recording or the monitoring in the team, the more on board they will be. The last thing you want is for your sales team to feel like it's Big Brother watching. You want to help them understand this is to help them increase their KPIs so they can also do better within the team, because everyone likes to do better, right? I think it's really important. The other thing I would suggest, which is my second tip, is to have like a 360-degree system. And what that means is that you and the BDM or your telesales person can get together, and even if you can get the customer involved as well, to have that 360-degree approach as to what is working and what isn't. The other thing is to get other people involved in helping listen to the calls, which is sort of my next tip number 3, which is engage the team. But get as many people as you can involved in listening to some of the calls and giving feedback. You'll probably find the people that make the calls are their worst critic anyway, so you don't have to say too much. If there's something in the call that's not great, the person that made the call, when they're listening back to it, will hear it and go, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Or, geez, I say a lot. Or I was talking more than I was listening, or whatever it might be, right? So they're a really good tool for that. But to have some sort of, make it a 360-degree sort of feedback loop where everybody can be involved in. Tip number 3 is engage the team. I think... get the team to come up with ideas as to how often you call monitor, what you do when you listen back to the recordings, what sort of calls you want to then share with the entire team. Because it's not just when people make mistakes, you want to reward when people do some good stuff, which is another one of my tips. I'll get to that shortly. But I really think it's important that the whole team gets involved in the process. So if you haven't got call monitoring yet, that's where I would start. Sit the team down, the sales team, the telesales team, whoever it is that you've got involved in the process, even customer service taking calls. Be surprised. I listen to recordings of calls that just come into our reception desk to see how the questions that customers are asking are getting answered. I think it's really powerful. So get the team involved in going, okay, well, what do we want to monitor? How often do we want to listen back to these? What sort of critiquing system do we want? What sort of training do we want as a result? So get them involved in the entire process. I think that's important. Tip number 4, provide immediate feedback. If you wait too long after listening to a recording, you're probably going to miss the boat. So I really think it's important that you listen to calls on a regular basis. If you go through one that's a bit older and something didn't go quite right, I would just let bygones be bygones. I'd try and find one that's more frequent or more recent, so they can actually remember the situation, remember the prospect, the customer, the situation, and I think it helps with the salesperson or the telesalesperson be fresher in their mind as to what actually happened and why it happened, because there may be a good reason for why they handled it the way they did. Tip 5 is to do the quality call monitoring together. So rather than you sneaking off and listening to their calls, book a session with your salesperson or your telesales or whoever it might be and sit down and listen to the calls together with them. And that way you can ask for their feedback first. And I find this is really powerful, is you let them tell you what they think they did well and what you think they could improve on, or what they think they could improve on from listening to that call. And I think you'll find that people will enjoy that process more. And then on that note, because that works so well, is it's also good just to let them critique their own calls. So you don't even get involved at all, and just give them a batch of their own recordings and say, here's 6 recordings, have a listen through. I haven't listened to them. and I want you to critique them and give them like a score sheet or something like that. So they're self-scoring. And same thing, I'd ask them those two questions. What do you think you did well? And what do you think you could improve on? So there you go. I mean, I could give you a dozen more tips, but I'm not going to do that. Otherwise, this tip would go forever. But call monitoring, I just think it's a really powerful tool for anybody who's got a sales team, customer service. If you've got a reception that's answering the phone, you'd actually be interested as to what questions your customers are asking when they ring up. I tell you what, I was. And then, of course, if you've got a tele-sales team of some sort, if somebody is cold calling or warm calling into a list, and they've been given a script and they've been given training, it's amazing how quickly people can go off on their own tangents if there's not regular training and feedback. And so doing the call recording really makes that nice and simple. So just a reminder too, if you are enjoying the DBT podcast, head to dbtpodcast.com and join the Daily Business Tips Tribe. We'd love to see you there. We've also got a Facebook group and a Facebook page that you can be a part of. If you go to facebook.com/groups/DBT podcast, you'll find us there. Join us there. All right, today's quote is with you. I'm going to finish today's tip with a quote, as I always do. And today's quote is from Mahatma Gandhi. And he says, if one takes care of the means, the ends will take care of itself. Thanks again for tuning into the DBT podcast. You've been fantastic. Until tomorrow, have a profitable day.